Imitation isn't a bad thing unless you never move forward from it. Because I've seen my students go from average photographers to phenomenal artists, I've noticed a few things that are pretty important. Wherever you are in your photography journey, today's message is totally for you. You're about to learn what it takes to live free of fear, to finally feel confident in your work, and to step into your true authenticity as an artist. Get ready because this is where we learn to stand out, to say yes to creating the work that we so deeply desire. Welcome. I'm Denise Birdsong, and I teach photographers and artists how to finally make their mark. Hey guys, you might be a brand new photographer, or maybe you're a mom tog like I was when I first started in photography, and photography was kind of a side hustle. Or perhaps you're a very well established professional photographer, or you might be somewhere in between all of these things. Wherever you are in your photography journey, today's message is totally for you. Today, I want to talk to you about imitation and innovation. And we're going to take the scenic route. So I want you to buckle up and get ready, and let's do this. I've had the honor of watching my students grow in such incredible ways over the years. I've watched my students go from struggling through their sessions, not knowing what to do, how to deal with clients who might be challenging, blanking out on posing, and just basically feeling like they're not really in control, all the way through to becoming fully aware, confident, badass photographers who understand exactly what it takes to create beautiful imagery and tell gorgeous stories. I've seen my students like Cara Marie experience exponential growth while practicing this method. I totally adore Cara. She actually attended one of my workshops in Las Vegas at WPPI, one of my in person workshops. And I'm not even going to lie, she showed up with mad skills. She's an amazing photographer. But she was brave and she was incredibly vulnerable. And by doing both of these things, she was able to lean in to something new, to growing, to innovating, to looking at our craft in a whole new way. And by doing this, she started to absolutely hone in her brilliance. It was such an intense experience for everyone that was there. It was really an incredible time. And I ran into Kara and several of my other students at a bar at WPPI, and there was a big happy cry fest because everyone was so moved by everything that they had learned. It was pretty awesome. And then later, Kara came out to San Francisco to shoot with me, and we had a wonderful time exploring even further, like new ways to innovate and look at our craft. If you don't know Kara Marie, you totally should. She is a badass and strong soul who bravely chases after her desires and her dreams and makes them happen, which is such a big reason that she's such a beautiful artist. Honestly, Kara's evolution it's just been phenomenal. It's been beautiful. Um, she's an industry leader, she's an educator, she's a mom, she's a wife, she's a total globe-trotting babe. Again, if you don't know her, you really should go find Cara Marie and follow her. She's awesome. Because I've watched so many of these transformations happen, because I've seen my students go from average photographers to phenomenal artists who really shake things up in the industry, I've noticed a few things that are pretty important. And perhaps one of the most profound things is seeing a photographer, or any artist for that matter, go from imitation to innovation. Listen, it's how we learn. Imitation isn't a bad thing unless you never move forward from it. In that case, your work starts to look like everybody else's, and you get stuck and you kind of fade into the background, and you're not being your true self. You just kind of blend in with everybody else. And guess what comes knocking when that happens? Yep, you guessed it. Fear of inadequacy, feeling like you're not good enough. and the comparison traps. Innovation is going to be your BFF during these times. And here comes the scenic route. Are you buckled up and ready to go? There was this time that I hung out with Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails at this itty bitty teeny club in San Jose called the Cactus Club. I learned a really important lesson that night about innovation versus imitation. It went a little bit like this. One of my dear friends, one of my best friends, loved Nine Inch Nails. They weren't a very popular band, they were kind of a young band. He loved their music. So he got tickets for us to go to the show and was super excited. We were going to go to the show. And he ditched me. He ended up going to band practice. He had to go to band practice. And I was stuck with these two tickets. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just go on my own. So I went on my merry little way and I went to go see the band. I wasn't super familiar with their work. He was the one who was a big fan of them, but I was going to go and have a good time. And at the time, I had been hanging out with a fella who was producing some pretty well known bands. And I had been spending some time in recording studios and in sound rooms. And with my best friend being in a band, I went to see a lot of live music and a lot of live shows. So needless to say, I was absolutely, and I'm not even trying to imply that I'm any kind of expert on sound or soundboards or production or anything like that. But I did know what good equipment looked like. When I got into the Cactus Club, there was this massive soundboard in the Cactus Club. Now, I'd been to the Cactus Club several times to see bands, and that was not the house equipment. They had pulled out the house equipment and brought in their own, which would sometimes happen. It was pretty rare, but it had never happened on a scale like this. This board was huge. It almost felt like I was in a studio. I was intrigued and I was checking out the board and, poking around, looking, not touching, of course, just looking around the board. Someone came up and was like, oh, something about sound. And so conversation started and I explained what I knew, which wasn't a whole lot. And he let me know that he actually did sound for Nine Inch Nails. So that was like shocking to me as well, that they didn't have the house sound engineer doing it, that they were traveling with their own sound engineer and bringing them to clubs with them. That was kind of a big deal to me for such a small club, right? This was a small venue. So after talking for a while, he asked me if I'd wanted to go hang out with him backstage and meet the band. And I was like, well, sure, that'd be great. So I did. I went backstage and I met the band and I met Trent Reznor. And we got to talking and I was like, my gosh, my best friend's not gonna believe that I met you. And, he's gonna be so jealous. And he was like, well, how come he's not here? And I explained he had ditched me. And he was like, we should call him. You guys, this was way before cell phones. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we should. So we got on the phone and I called the practice studio where my friend was at. And they went into the practice room and they got him because I told him it was an emergency. And he came to the phone and I got on the phone and I was like, hey, there's somebody who really needs to talk to you. And I handed the phone to Mr. Reznor. And he proceeded to tell my friend what a dumbass he was for ditching me that night and not going to this show. It was fantastic. My friend still hates to this day when I tell this story. If you're listening, hey, Damon, shouldn't ditch me. Anyways, I really did learn a lot that night about innovation over imitation. And while Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor were creating industrial music, and there was a genre like that prior to them being on the scene, they were really putting in a lot of effort into their craft by bringing their own sound equipment and having their own sound engineer and experimenting with new and different sounds. And they were doing something different than all of the other bands, most of all of the other bands, not all of them, so many of the other bands, which is why I imagine Nine Inch Nails is Nine Inch Nails. And all of the other little bands that I used to go see at the Cactus Club are all of the other little bands that I used to go and see. So much to be said about innovating and pushing and going outside of the box and doing things differently and trying new things and experimenting and stepping outside of your comfort zone. It worked for Trent Reznor. If he can do it, you can do it as well. As you look to become an innovator in your craft and really start honing your skills, how about looking outside of the photography industry for inspiration? Sure, it's good to be inspired by other photographers. I mean, I absolutely am. Ellen von Unworth. Oh God, her work sublime, so good. Lillian Bassman, amazing. Mizell. I mean, the list just goes on and on. There are so many amazing photographers and artists to be inspired by. Duchamp, of course. Of course, of course. But they're not the only people we need to be inspired by, and the industry is not the only place where we can get inspiration. Have you ever wondered or thought, like, what kind of inspiration can you find for your art in music or in literature or in sculptures or paintings or poetry? There's so much inspiration all around you within the arts and the humanities. You don't have to box yourself in to this one little space to be inspired by. When we go on this incredible journey of discovering the arts and the other humanities and being inspired by these other mediums, we go on an amazing growth journey that helps us start to innovate as opposed to just imitating. Honestly, in my opinion, we should always be learning. I make an effort to always be learning, and I think we all should be learning. As artists and creatives, it's what drives us, it's what feeds our soul. It really is one of the things that keeps us wholehearted and makes us happy. So, doing things that make you a little bit uncomfortable, stepping outside of your box, I mean, hell, even getting a little bit scared, it's good. It's good for you. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable. And it's okay to be a little bit nervous. And it's really okay to break the rules and try new things. As a matter of fact, I dare you to break the rules and go try some new things. Because doing all of this will lead you down the path of excellence. So you can chase those dreams and those desires, and you can innovate and step into your true, authentic voice. You should always be investing in yourself with your valuable time and with your education. So many of my students come to me stuck in a complete rut. I see it time and time again. My students get into educational situations that are do as I say or do as I do. And honestly, it just leaves them feeling like an imposter and struggling with finding their own voice. It's because my students trust me and they immerse themselves in a methodology that's a whole new way of looking at our medium, our art, that they are able to really step into their true, authentic artistic self and start creating work that fills them with joy and fills them with pride and feels innovative, and they don't feel like imposters, and they feel like they're valued and they're bringing value to their clients. Today, you might be using imitation to further your growth. And being on that path and that journey right now is totally okay. 100% okay. We've all been there, we all do it. And regardless of where we are on our path and our journey, it slips in and it happens. It's okay. It's also totally okay and really kind of cool to actually start innovating, trying new things, stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing things that scare you, and breaking the rules a little bit. That's always fun. I would ask you, why don't you start trying new things? Start looking for inspiration outside of your industry. Oh my gosh, stop looking for inspiration in your Instagram feed all the time. Once in a while is okay, not all the time. I mean, even outside of our artistic medium, like we talked about earlier, music, poetry, painting, sculpture, literature, all of the arts, like dive in and just revel in the beauty of it and be inspired. When you start exploring other mediums and other areas for inspiration, you're going to find that you'll be on the road to creating work that you deeply, deeply desire, work that is going to fill you with pride and bring so much value to what it is that you're doing for yourself and for others. At the end of the day, this is your journey, your art, your story. There's no right or wrong, just where you are and where you want to go. If you want to go, lean into that growth, even if it's a little uncomfortable. Learn to tell the stories that we tell as photographers beautifully, very much like our peer Cara Marie or other artists like Trent Reznor or Anais Nin or Picasso or Bukowski or Lillian Bassman or I don't know, Nick Cave. So many artists to be inspired by. Rembrandt, Van Gogh, all of them amazing. Like just go, dive in, be inspired. Just do it. Go on, go and innovate. Go make the world a more beautiful place. If you love this episode, please leave me a review, screenshot it, and DM me on Instagram at Denise Birdsong Photographer for a special little goodie that I have for you guys. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for more awesome episodes. Bye.